accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense.
Here we go. It is episode 10 of the Red, White, and Crew podcast. Thank you for joining us. Excited for special day. It's match day 3 preview of our U.S. men's national team as they take on an already eliminated Turkiye, insert whatever name you want to call them, matchup, which will prove to be a tricky one. We're going to get into that today. We're going to look at our second day of match day 3, all the matchups today. Look at the third place standings as well as where group standings are right now in general. So excited about today. Got our great crew joining us today. Coach Ramos, Coach Heyman, Coach Castorena, all ready to dive in. But before we do, want to give a shout out to our partners, our proud partners at Goal Getter. This episode is brought to you by Goal Getter, a recruiting education platform built to help female soccer student athletes and their families navigate the path to college soccer. The process can feel overwhelming, especially when families don't fully understand the recruiting landscape. Goal Getter provides the education, tools, and guidance families need to navigate the recruiting landscape and make informed decisions. If you haven't checked them out yet, make sure you do. They're new on the scene. Excited to be partnered up with them. Come from just great stock. They are a soccer people-oriented organization. So kind of a bit of an upstart, but defined by great people, built by great people. So you got to check them out. To get more information on them, you can visit them at goalgetter.com. That's GOLGETR.com. Again, that's goalgetter.com. And you can also follow them on Instagram and X at goalgettersoccer to learn more. That's at GOLGETR soccer, at goalgettersoccer to learn more. Gentlemen, match day 3 started yesterday. Thoughts from our first day and as we look forward to today?
I'm interested to see how many more surprises we get in this last set of matches, right? Like, South Africa getting that win. I think somebody on here called it. So, I mean, but there will be.
What's that they say about a broke clock? I forget.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think we're all Bafana today, guys. Just letting y'all know.
Bufana, sir. Let's get that right. Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now. You're cultured.
So I'll be interested to see what other kind of crazy results we get on these last days. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, country roads, Heyman. So obviously we talked a lot about South Africa. Elias just mentioned South Africa kind of turned that group on its head and kind of opened things up for that group to get in to all but assure that 3 teams will go, right, with South Korea as well. We'll talk about South Korea in a minute, but besides South Africa, or in addition to South Africa, your general thoughts on yesterday?
I just, I was flipping back and forth between the 2 games and, just kept seeing that, South Africa was staying in that game. And like I said yesterday, if South Africa was in that game 60 minutes in, then I thought they had a really good chance of finding a way to pull that out. And sure enough, they score a great goal and then they just held on. And I mean, it was really interesting watching that game. The last 10 to 12 minutes of that game, it really looked like South Korea had no urgency. They weren't chasing after the ball when it went out of play. They weren't chasing it back. There was really no. It was such a weird game to watch. It was like maybe South Korea already.
Would you say that they were playing as if they had food poisoning? Would you say that?
Maybe they drank the water. Maybe they had food poisoning. Maybe they met someone who told them that they should lose the game. And I don't know. What happened to Ronaldo in '98 right before the final? He was in the hospital the night before the match and
right.
Didn't play well. So I mean, who knows what happens in these games here? But it was just really interesting watching South Korea, lose the way they did. But the rest of the games yesterday, just a lot of good soccer. Teams that are playing for a shot to go to the round of 32.
Yeah. So when you talk about that match in particular, just South Africa and South Korea. Excuse me. We knew it was going to be an interesting one. We weren't quite sure what to expect, but at the same time, we saw South Africa looked like a totally different team from match day 1 versus Mexico. Like you could tell they're figuring things out. And South Korea basically playing a de facto home match. They just did not. They didn't look right from start to finish. Zero sense of urgency, as you mentioned. And my thought was like, hey, South Africa is just tricky to play against. But it was more so of just South Korea looked like they were content with being there, and they just thought that I don't know that they were just gonna that the goals were just gonna happen. Just zero. The body language showed that I don't know, do they really want to be there? Kind of thing. And I don't know if that trickles down from the coach on down. And then we start seeing all the drama unfolding on social media that there's clearly more going on. I mean, how do you not start Son, right? How do you not start him? How do you not play him? And then you got subs coming out at various points who are highly discontent. I mean, just everything looked completely off. So, Rafa, did you get a chance to watch any of that South Korea match at all?
I saw the highlights of it,
Yeah.
kind of back and forth, and you can tell the body language. They weren't, I don't know, I mean, they were just not into it. And I'm wondering if the game before losing to Mexico took a lot out of them, and thinking, well, we just need to show up and we'll take care of South Africa because they haven't really played well. And like I kind of said, if they kept it, close early on, like I said, South Africa could pull something. And like I said, it was up to South Korea to get the result right away, put them out, and that didn't happen. And like I said, like Coach Heyman said, like I said, they opened themselves up to getting that goal scored on, and that's what happened. And they only can blame themselves, just kind of bad. It's a bad approach to this game. I think they should.
Yeah.
I don't think, like I said, they should have taken it a little bit more serious.
I was just like, what are they doing? What are they thinking? And then South Africa just it's like, hey, if you guys are going to play like that and you guys are going to make mistake after mistake, we're not going to get in the way. We're not going to interrupt you. But yeah, they have not. I mean, I will say this, even in the Czechia match that they won, they've gradually declined, right, from the Czechia match through the Mexico match. Granted, they played well in moments versus Mexico, and it obviously came down to a great save by the Mexico goalkeeper and the Mexican Duck, right, to make that a 1-0 victory for Mexico. But in this one, they just declined. They further declined against a lesser opponent, obviously far lesser opponent than, but also a trickier opponent. And South Africa was just playing so much better, right? So, what about we talked?
That first game against Czechia kind of inflated our expectations of this team, though? I mean, going back and looking, now what Czechia's done. I mean, they have like 2 shots on target or something, like in their previous 2 games or something like that. So I don't really know.
Czechia, I think, only had 2 great looks, right? And I think they were set pieces, if I'm not mistaken in that. But yeah, we got into that too, right? Group A, has come to find out, yeah, they're gonna more than likely get 3 teams in, but not what we thought they were in terms of strength, right? We knew Mexico was the class of the group, but to see South Korea decline the way they did, so much so that they opened the door to South Africa, I agree with you. And then Czechia has just further declined even on top of that. So Haiti and Morocco, thoughts on that? That one was unfolding as we were live on the air yesterday, and we were discussing it a little while ago. So how much of that tells us about Morocco, and how much of that tells us about Haiti?
I think it tells you a little bit about both teams. I think that we've seen that Haiti is willing to go and play people, quote unquote, straight up. I think that they have a very unique ability to sit low and be comfortable absorbing pressure. And then also when they break and when they do have the ball, they're willing runners. They're able to get numbers forward. They're able to attack. So it was, and then Morocco, I think, probably underestimated Haiti, but then I think showed their class to put 4 goals on a Haiti team that has shown a lot of promise. I mean, that shows you that they have the quality. It's hard to score 4 goals in this tournament. I mean, how many, we've seen it, maybe just 4 or 5 times. So I think that it tells you a little bit about both. Morocco is kind of an interesting team because against Brazil, the first quarter, they look like they may win the whole thing. and then it just kind of petered out a little bit, and they didn't look as dominant. Not that, obviously, we watched Brazil play, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but Brazil has gotten better, but Morocco kind of had everyone questioning how good is Brazil. So I think that both those teams, I think, are really interesting going forward.
Yeah,
I,
Brazil.
I think it was interesting to watch Haiti, compete at that level. I think what we saw yesterday was Haiti had nothing to lose, and they came out playing like they had nothing to lose yesterday. And I think they kind of shocked Morocco early, and it took a little bit of time for Morocco to kind of get settled down and get back into the game. And sure enough, they're able to. I mean, you can see the class on that team, and I still think they're going to make some noise in the knockout stages and potentially upset somebody, because I think what sets them apart from a lot of teams, they've got an incredible goalkeeper, and when Bono is on, he is one of the best goalkeepers in the world, as we saw at the last World Cup, and we even saw it in some of the Club World Cup this past summer, I believe. He just makes some saves that are just world class, and I think that's, having a goalkeeper like that, that's a goalkeeper that can win you matches versus a goalkeeper that won't lose you a match. And I think Morocco has a lot to say in this tournament before it's over.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I think I'm still not 100% sold on Morocco. I still see. Yeah, do they have class? Do they have talent? We know that. I don't know. I don't know if they're kind of the flip the switch team, and one of these days, they're going to go and it's no juice. So we'll see. But I don't know. I was thoroughly impressed. Elias mentioned them a minute ago, and they just continue that Ancelotti effect. Brazil, man, Brazil slowly just getting better, game match by match. Thoughts on that, Elias?
Yeah, I think, we talked about Ancelotti being probably one of the best managers in the tournament, and I think that his ability to feel the players and just kind of like he understands kind of what their strengths are. We saw a 4-4-2 diamond from them, I think, which got the best out of all of them, right? Especially, we talked about how are they going to handle not having Rafinha. Well, just throw an extra midfielder in there and take him out. It gave them more structure out of possession. So now you have kind of four runners in behind, and it allowed you to kind of play in that 4-4-2 mid block. But I thought that just overall, he got his profiling spot on with the system that he wanted to play. And I think that, he's only been in charge for a year. So every week he's getting with them, they are becoming more and more an Ancelotti team. So if they can make a run, and they've had 7-8 weeks together, I think you're going to see a completely different Brazil than we did in the beginning of the tournament. So, getting Neymar in there, that just gives you an extra, is he a starter? I don't know. Probably not. But if you can bring somebody on like that, last 15, 20 minutes of a game, to give you a little bit of creativity, that gives you a little bit something extra. So, no, I think that they are growing into this tournament, and I would rather play my worst game in the beginning of the tournament than in the middle or the end. So,
What were your thoughts on Neymar? I know he didn't get a ton of action, but what were your thoughts?
yeah, I mean, he still has, he's just class. I mean, he's gonna get, his technical ability and his ability to improvise. I mean, those things don't disappear. And I do think if you get him on the field, you will see like a James Rodriguez type performance where they can just roll back the clock, even though maybe in the modern game they don't really necessarily fit. If he was playing on it, he's not going to play in an elite club because he's not going to defend, and he's not going to be able to hold up to the rigors of the season. Same thing with James, but you put him in a Brazil shirt in the World Cup, and I think that you can get something special out of that.
Yeah, yeah. And then we wrap up with the nightcap. It was simultaneously one of the last matches. But Rafa, thoughts on L3 in terms of their substitution patterns, their formations, what you saw. They dismantled a Czechia team that decided not to defend in the second half. This was a 0-0 match at the half, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And they just completely decided not to come out second half. Credit to Mexico. But your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, you can tell at the first half. Well, at the end of the first half, you heard the boos, so that kind of motivated them to get it going. I think tactically, what I think Aguirre did on this lineup, he knew with the size that Czech Republic had, so he kind of matched that. And if you notice in the first half, they kind of went toe to toe with them and not allow them crosses in to get headers and so forth. And so they defended well. And then they made a little couple of changes in the end. And I think one thing with Czech Republic, they ran out of gas after the 65 minute. They were pretty much after the first goal. They were pretty much done, and then that's when Mexico went on that terror on that later half of the.
I think that's where
after the hydration break.
That's where you saw the elevation, right, and everything kick in, the atmosphere. That's where it kicked in.
Yeah, that's where you can tell that they were done. And the kudos to, I mean, the spotlight out of this is watching Gilberto Mora. I honestly think he needs to start the next game. I think he really, if you can tell, he was basically a field general there, and only at 17, he had the instincts of a 30-year-old. Just organizing some of the passes he was going, sending through into the space and so forth. And
did they sub him out at all last night? Did he play the whole match?
He played. I think he played up to the 70th. I think 70th minute, and then he got subbed out for. But that was another good move there too. Is when they put in Fidalgo, then kind of kept that pace too. Distributing balls and so forth. Santi Jimenez got some start, and then I think the big thing is getting Guillermo Ochoa kind of the last hurrah for him, a good send off. That's where he first started playing there with Club America. Like he mentioned at the interview, that his first game was there, and I guess he gets to finish his career there. But you gotta give it to Mexico. They were relentless. They did. They were pushing, went through. I think, like I said, they went toe to toe with their physicalness from Czech Republic, and they were able to pull through and get a really good convincing result. And I think it's a good confidence builder because, like I mentioned in the last episode, if you go into limping into the into the knockout stage, that can affect you. But this is kind of like I said, they're uncharted territory here. They won first time they ever won 3 games in the group stage. They didn't allow a goal, so they're starting to peak at the right time, and that's what you want. You want to be going making that trajectory, like you mentioned about Korea, started high, now they're going down. It's the total opposite for Mexico.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts now? So you start looking forward. So there are 3 matches. Their group play is done for them. You look at the round of 32 projections, right? There's still lots of permutations that are affecting different group winners. But their round of 32 potential matchup and then their pathway. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess the first game is going to be depending who they match up with. Is it a Scotland or could it be, Ecuador? I think they can. They knowing that the game's at the Azteca, having that advantage is going to, it's going to be helpful for them. It's just going to depend what kind of lineup he wants to put out there to kind of match things. If it's an AFCON team, that it's going to be probably you're going to have a physical team. If it's a South American team, you're going to make sure you have your finesse, touch, and so forth, control the ball. The one thing, like I said, I do want to see is I think Gilberto Mora does need to start first knockout game. Beyond that, like I said, there's a possibility they may play England in that second game. Now that game might be a little high for him, because of the experience wise, but I can see him as being like a super sub, kind of like a change of pace if the game is close. So like I said, you'll see some changes maybe in the back 4 if they want to go a little more physical, more height, and that's what they did in this game. But Aguirre's gonna he's gonna grind it out, kind of what like I mentioned earlier on the off before we went on, is like what he did at Mallorca. Here on out in the knockout stage, it doesn't matter how pretty the game you play. It's just getting the result, and that's what he did at Mallorca. It's about just getting results. If we won 1-0, 2-1, and all beautiful or ugly, as long as we advance, that's all that matters to them.
Yeah, Aguirre's done such a great job with them. This is, and I say for as long as I've been watching them, and obviously watching them even coming up as a U.S. men's national team fan, all the years, this might be one of the most disciplined Mexican teams I've ever seen, right? Just in terms of, Yeah, they have some star quality players, but they don't have any prima donnas. They don't have anybody else like, hey, it's me above, the shirt, me above the jersey. And they're very well organized. They play within themselves. I still think they gotta get out of that rut of looking to the fans for validation of, hey, 0-0 at the half against an opponent like Czechia. Then we hear the boos, and then we kind of decide to kick in, right? It's kind of one of those where same thing, right? One of these days you go to the well one too many times, and then the well's going to be dry. Because if it is England in the Azteca, right, you got to get off to the fast start, right? It can't be one of those of, hey, let's fall behind, right, or let's be 0-0 late, and then we start hearing it from the crowd. But yeah, that should be an electric atmosphere for sure. So. All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna look at today's slate, right? So we've already talked about. We'll get into the USA Turkey matchup later, but our first sets of matches here. So all times here Eastern. So 3 o'clock Central Time. We'll have Group E kicks it off with Curacao, Ivory Coast, Ecuador, and Germany. Our second slate of games slated for 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central will be Japan, Sweden. Very excited to look at that, to see that one. Netherlands and poor Tunisia. I don't know. Netherlands might put 6 on them on this one. And then the nightcaps, Group D comes to play. Paraguay versus Australia, which I think this one probably. So there's three great matchups here today. This one could be interesting because they're kind of going all out for who can win, who can get second, right, and avoid the potential third place matchup. But Paraguay, Australia, that's 10 p.m. Eastern out at Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, and then, of course, USA, Turkey. So thoughts on these guys when you look at these? Let's start off with Group E. Brian, your thoughts on either one or both of them?
Well, I think one of the things Julian Nagelsmann came out yesterday and said he's not planning on squad rotating. He is planning on winning this game. The only two changes he's having to make are due to injuries. Schlotterbock's out for the rest of the World Cup, and then Nathaniel Brown has got some issues there. So, I think that poses a big problem for Ecuador. Ecuador has got to find a way to win this game. I think
Did they confirm Schlotterbock is out rest of the tournament?
I've heard reports that it could be as much as 2 months with an ankle injury.
Okay.
But again, nothing's been confirmed by the Germans, but that's kind of what I've seen. But like I said, Ecuador's got to find a way to win this game if they want to jump up into that fight for into the third place table, because they're sitting on just 1 point, and if they can find a way to get a win, then all of a sudden they jump into that. They're going to jump into that land where they're pretty much guaranteed a spot in the 32. So I think that's going to be a real interesting matchup today. I think you're going to see Ecuador come out with some desperation today that they've got to win. And then the Curacao Ivory Coast game, I think you're going to see the class from the Ivory Coast come in there. And then, tonight's games, I'm interested to see the Japan-Sweden game. I think that's going to be real interesting.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back to group in a minute.
Okay.
So, Elias, thoughts on Group E matchups?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Curacao Ivory Coast, I think that's going to be straightforward. Would like to see how Curacao does. Can they get another point against a better opponent? I know that I think they were a little shell shocked after they played Germany, but then they were able to hold on against Ecuador. So that's going to be, and I think Ivory Coast, they don't want to get jumped either, right? Like so. They're going to want to go out and play well. But yeah, that Ecuador-Germany game, I mean, if they don't have Schlotterbeck, I mean, the way that, not that they don't have, you have Rudiger that can come off the bench. So it's not like they have, they're hurting for options. But there's a reason he's a starter there. He's like, 6'5" or something. He's left-footed center back. I mean, perfect partner for Jonathan Tah there in the back. And they're going to be able, that allows them to get into that 2-1-7, 3-1-6 attacking shape. And so, I think we all know as coaches, like the one pairing you don't want to mess with on your field is your center back pairing. Like that has to be, they have to be in sync. They have to understand each other. So, you're going to come up in a game where Ecuador is going to play with as much intensity as they'll probably play the rest of the tournament because they know this is their last shot. So I'm really interested to see that game. I think Germany, they do have more class, but we've seen in this tournament that it's a game of moments. And if Ecuador can get one before Germany does, and it's 1-0 Ecuador, you are going to see some crazy Cannonball style soccer to see out this game. So it's going to be this one is very interesting, and who gets the first goal is going to tell us a lot about how this game is going to go.
Right.
And Hector,
sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Germany has confirmed that Schlotterbeck's going to miss the rest of the World Cup. He's going to miss several months with a medial ankle ligament injury.
I thought they were kind of looking at him if they could bring him further along in the knockout rounds, but wow, I did not know that. So, okay, it's interesting stuff. So, Rafa, you look at Group E: Curacao, Ivory Coast, Ecuador, Germany. Your thoughts?
Yeah, with the Ecuador Germany game, Ecuador's got to bring it. Like I said, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Either win or go home. So they have to start out fast. They got to get a goal or two, and then just hold on. I guess we'll see what what Germany does. Let's say if Ecuador does get a lead, does Germany kind of pull back and say, all right, we'll give them this game. We'll just rest our players and go on to the next. Knowing Germany, they want to win this game. But if they do fall behind, like I said, what kind of what will they do at the end? Give some experienced players, also pull out the guys that have cards too as well. That's a big thing. If they have cards, are they going to be on the pitch, or we could just hold them out? Ivory Coast, like I said, it's a given there. They have to take care of business with Curacao. I know it's not going to be easy. Kind of similar to like Morocco, Haiti game. It's kind of a mirror image of this. Another CONCACAF team trying to do what CONCACAF does best, trying to throw the monkey wrench. So Ivory Coast got to start fast, get the lead, and then just go on to the next. So real good, I guess, important scenarios for both squads, to try to get to the final 32.
Yeah, those will be our first matches of the day, Group E. I think Ecuador, Elias alluded to it a little bit. I think this is kind of unstoppable force versus immovable object a little bit. This is an Ecuador squad. Finished second in CONMEBOL. They give up very few goals, but yet they don't score a ton, kind of similar to Paraguay, right? So they're going to have to get off to a fast start. Is that out of character for them, right? They do have finishers, but they just have not been able to find the back of the net. But I also see I could see Germany just kind of running away with this too at the same time. As good as Ecuador is, Germany Germany had to win it. They win it in the 94th, 95th minute, their last match. So how do they bounce back from that? How long does it take them to figure out Ecuador? And then Ivory Coast, Curacao, I feel like this might turn out to be the most fun matchup of the day. So we shall see, right? We talk about the CONCACAF effect, Ivory Coast, lots of athletes, lots of great players, but have also just struggled to find the back of the net. So, all right, Group F. Brian, you were talking about Group F in terms of Japan and Sweden, a match I'm very excited to watch. Your thoughts on Group F?
I think you're going to see. First of all, I think you're going to see the Dutch just run rampant over Tunisia. I'm very disappointed that I'm not going to be there on the sideline with them today to lead them against that game. But I do think the Dutch are going to run through that one. So it just sets up that Japan-Sweden game, and that's just a real interesting game. Can Japan get it going against the Swedes? The way they did against Tunisia. Can they continue doing what they're doing? And can the Swedes maybe jump them? Can the Swedes get over them and jump them? I think it's gonna be interesting to see how Japan's two center backs deal with Giorgis and Isak. Same thing I was worried about yesterday when we were talking about the U.S. possibly playing in Sweden, dealing with a couple of big, tall center or strikers that can pose some problems for you. I think this game might be a little high scoring. Of course, I keep saying that there's going to be some high scoring games, and then every game I think high scoring is going to be a 1-0 or a 0-0. But I think this game has the opportunity to be open.
Yeah,
You know,
both these teams have been in some have had multiple high scoring matches.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a good thing there. But at the same time, I think Sweden, to avoid having to play a third place team, I don't. What is it currently? If they're, I think currently right now they would be projected to play.
Yeah, they're among the top of the third place teams. They just can't.
Yeah, they would.
They
They would
can't
have.
let Japan, even if they lose, they can't let Japan run away from them on goal
Yeah,
differential. You know?
but they right now they're projected to play France in the round of 32, and if they can jump them, I think the second place team in there is projected to play Brazil. So, you know,
Yeah,
one of
right now
those.
that's Japan. Going into today, that's Japan.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
You know, I think it'd be interesting to see what the Swedes can do. The Swedes just can't afford to lose the goal difference and fall down that third place ladder.
Yeah. Elias, thoughts, Group F?
Yeah, I think the Netherlands Tunisia game is going to be damage limitation for Tunisia. So, what do the Netherlands send out there though? Are they going to rotate? They have a lot of players that, like Frankie De Jong, like he is a injury concern. He's made of glass, it seems like. So does he play today? So just kind of what do they do over there? Not really a whole lot, I think, in that one. But yeah, that Japan Sweden game, it's going to be interesting. Japan plays in that 3-4-3. So and they don't mind having the ball, but they don't really care if they have it or not. So. Do they kind of give the ball to Sweden and say, okay, try to break us down with your two strikers? Or do they go at them and then now they're leaving space in behind and now it's a transition game? So I think I could see this game. It's either going to be like 0-0, 1-1, or it's going to be 5-4. I don't think there's going to be much in between. I think it's either going to be really, really cagey or really, really open. But yeah, I mean, Japan seems to, their coach has come in and, he's talked about like, we're here to win. We're here to win the whole thing. I mean, and so they kind of have that confidence. Did they get Kubo back or is he still out?
Say that again. Who?
Kubo, Japan?
No, I think he's out. I'll double. No. He was on. I'll have to hear. I'll double check that one. I'm not 100% sure now that you say that. But go ahead. I'll look it up.
But he's kind of their X factor. Sweden with Isak and Gyökeres. I mean, that's the best center forward pairing in the world. It is interesting to see like kind of how that duo is going to evolve, just because in the modern game you don't see a lot of teams playing with 2 nines. So I think that partnership is going to kind of get better as they go on. But I mean, if I was Brazil, I don't know that I really want to see either of these two teams in the next round. With as good as Brazil is, Japan is not going to give you a lot of space. Sweden is going to be really threatening on the counter. Both two things that I think are going to trouble any team they see. So, I mean, I feel bad for whoever gets the third place team out of that group, because you're getting a really good third place team. I think that this was one of the deepest groups in the tournament.
Yeah,
Kubo,
the latest on Kubo is that he has not returned to group training, and they're still projecting him to not be there for Sweden.
Okay.
He's not even traveling with the team today. They're just preparing him for the knockouts, or trying to.
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, I hadn't seen any updates on them, so when you asked that, I was just like, I don't know. They've been kind of quiet with him, so interesting. Yeah, I think Sweden is like, which Sweden are we going to get? Are we going to get the one that pounded Tunisia 5-1, or the ones that got pounded by the Netherlands 5-1? So what do we get, and how does the masterful tacticians in Japan, right, and just the technical giants that they are, versus Sweden, their athleticism, a lot more talent than I think they're given credit for, and their size. How does Japan handle that in set pieces, right? So interesting. I think they're going to be in store for another great one at Jerry World there in that one. So, all right, and then we move on. Rafa, your thoughts on Japan, Sweden? I know you had mentioned a little bit of the Dutch already, but your thoughts, Group F, particularly Japan, Sweden.
Yeah, that game's, like I said, there's a lot at stake in that game. So both teams are going to be going at it but it's really pick your poison. Who do you want to play, France or Brazil? I mean,
Right,
it's.
right, right.
I mean, it's. I mean, I'm sure like they want to maybe like I said, you're seeing the Brazil team that's kind of going up, or you got a France team too. So it's really whoever has the best matchup. I think that's what kind of could matter there. But not having Kubo's, it does affect Japan a bit. I know, like I say, he is running, but what I've read on some stories, he is running. He has that knee sprain. But I think more than likely they're saving him for that knockout stage. But should be a fun game. We'll see how disciplined Japan can stay. Can Sweden shake off that romp that the Netherlands did on them, but should be a fun, probably the key games, fun games tonight. Netherlands, like I said, they'll take care of business against Tunisia.
Yeah, good deal. I think Japan's favorable matchup. If I'm Japan, I'm probably thinking, hey, we'll take Brazil over France, right? I think in this case, but we'll see. And then our nightcaps, Group D, we're going to dive into USA and Turkiye in depth, so we won't really worry about that one too much right now. Let's discuss Paraguay, Australia. Brian, your thoughts on this one? Both Brian and Elias jump in here. Your thoughts, because this is kind of a winner takes second place, right? What can we see from a potentially surging Paraguay squad, and what does Australia look like after that result versus the U.S.?
It reminds me of, like with the way that they played. You remember that old Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd skit where they're like, "Here, you take it. You take it. No, you take it. No, you take it." Like I feel like that's how they're both going to be with the ball because they don't really either of them really care to have the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. From a neutral perspective, I'm kind of hoping that Paraguay wins. Because I have tickets to the round of 32 match here in Dallas. So I'd kind of like to see a team that's kind of a little bit more adventurous than maybe Australia. But I think that, Paraguay came and got a result against Turkiye. I mean, so did Australia. I think that, Australia would like to have that first half back against the U.S. because I thought that they competed a little bit better in the second half. Obviously, I think Paraguay would like, the whole game back against the U.S. It's an interesting game just because you don't really know how it's going to go. I don't really know that I could give you a whole lot on how exactly this one's going to go.
Which one do you think, what are we more likely to get? Paraguay from match day 2? Or Australia from match day 1, right? Because these are two teams that live and die by the counter, right? So someone's going to have to, just like you said, right? The Elmer Fudd, no, you take it. No, you take it, right? Who wants the ball? Who's going to want to win the possession battle? And does it come down to midfield, right? So Paraguay looked better, obviously, match day 2. Australia looked phenomenal match day 1 versus Turkey. So what do you think we're more likely to see in this matchup between these two?
Well, I think
Go ahead, Brian.
I think it depends on who Australia starts up top. Against Turkey, they started Aaron Kondu up top, and he was a menace, and he was really a menace against the U.S. as well. If he starts against Paraguay, I think he's going to be in the same instance that Florian Balogun was against Paraguay was. He's just going to cause all sorts of issues and all sorts of matchup issues for the Paraguayan defense. I think Paraguay will be more comfortable with the ball than Australia will be. So I think Paraguay will hold more of the possession. The question will be, can they defend the counter and then the speed that the Australians have going forward? And that'll be a big test for them because they struggled with the speed of the U.S. early on, and hopefully they've learned a few things from that and got themselves prepared for it. But if I got to choose who I would rather have Australia from game 1 than Paraguay from game 2. Paraguay was much more defensively organized, much stronger there. They played really well with down a man. They did not. And even with down a man, I thought they were more likely to score than Turkiye was in the second half because they were hitting them on the counter. So I think it'll be a real interesting. It'll be a matchup of styles. I think Australia doesn't want the ball. I think they just want to be able to get it into spaces, get it into the final third, and just let their guys go run down and get it. And you know, I also think is the referee going to allow this game to be a free for all like it was against the U.S. Are they going to be able to play that big bruising physical style against the Paraguayans?
Yeah, yeah. You go back to Australia, right? Tony Popovich, probably the biggest blunder out of Group D was what was he thinking in his starting lineup, right, versus the U.S., right? Why he didn't? I mean, they weren't injured, right? Him and Metcalf, they weren't injured, so I don't know why. I don't know if he tried to think it's like, hey, we're gonna absorb, and then try to steal the match in like the last 30 minutes. I don't know if that was the original game plan going in, but yeah, that obviously backfired. And then Paraguay, right? You talk about how Irukunda for Australia on the counter, doing it against Turkey is one thing. As elite as Turkey is, Paraguay is far better organized defensively, right? So does Australia look to try to steal a page from the United States in terms of how they got in behind, right? They build totally different because Australia does look to primarily just send it up the field very direct. But I mean, Paraguay, we're talking about, as Elias mentioned before, right? That's like Dark Arts FC, right? How does Australia handle that, right? Do they get into the heads of Australia over the course of the match, right? So, Rafa, your thoughts, Paraguay, Australia?
I think this game may come down to set pieces. I think that's the key as far as both being teams playing defensively and the way they kind of stack the ball, play the counters. I think comes down to set pieces, either corner kicks, set pieces out the 18. Who's going to be the better of them? I think Australia has a little better attack compared to Paraguay. I think they have better players up there. So if I'm Australia, I think maybe kind of challenge them early on, try to go after them, try to get a lead, knowing that Paraguay doesn't play well from behind. So I think that's probably the game plan for them is let's try to get a lead within the first 20 minutes or right before the hydration break, and then we can organize from there, because that way we kind of pull them out of their box and we can come spread them out and then be able to send those direct balls up the field and trying to get behind them. So I think that's the key for Australia. Paraguay, I think kind of the same game plan they did. Turkey try to sneak one in and then hold on for the rest of the way, So it's going to be it's like a chess match. Who's going to do the right moves and so forth, and also who does the key thing is who makes the first mistake. I think that's going to be who really makes the blunder back there in the defense that allows that maybe that one single opportunity. I think this game probably ends up being like a 1-0 game. I would not be surprised. It's going to be very low scoring.
Yeah, and this is if I'm not mistaken, this is the match that Almiron will be out for, right, for Paraguay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So as their kind of number 10 playmaker, right, how do they adjust to that? And probably impacts Enciso the most. And I feel like Enciso's probably, he's been looking for a game to probably go off. I could see Australia's defense maybe, if they can isolate, similar to Irukunda, to where maybe he can get a goal, right? And that could be the difference. Definitely low scoring. So, any final thoughts on this, guys, as we look? And I was going to tell you, Elias, by the way, how going back to the Netherlands, how dare you speak of Frankie de Jong, a Barca player like that? It hurts my feelings.
I'm sure it does. The glass man, man. He's the glass man.
The Glass Man, Mr. Glass. All right, so we move on. So round of 32. So our teams that have officially punched their ticket so far, we're up to 13. We have a couple of second-place teams, a couple of group winners already, and then, of course, Bosnia and Herzegovina comes, and South Africa joined the party yesterday. South Africa is a second-place team, and then, of course, Bosnia and Herzegovina as our one official third-place team that has punched their ticket, right? So, along with Canada, I should say. So thoughts on these so far as we make our way. We'll continue to fill up, obviously, over the course of the next couple of days. But anything stand out to you all so far?
I think you have France, obviously, France and Argentina, the two, returning finalists. They obviously took care of business early. Your three host countries have made it. You have, and then Morocco, who we all consider to be a dark horse, Norway, who we all consider to be a dark horse. So I think it's the usual suspects here. Maybe Bosnia and Herzegovina and South Africa, maybe those two are kind of the outliers. But other than that, I don't think anyone's surprised that, 11 of these 13 teams are moving on. So,
Brian, anything?
No, I mean, I think we've a lot of the only real big surprise we've seen has been South Africa, but I think a lot of the what we've seen so far has been kind of in what we projected, maybe not in the order that we projected, but we kind of always kind of figured these were going to be the top teams. I'm interested to see if we see any more surprises. Obviously with Turkiye going home, that's going to be another surprise. So, Paraguay or in Australia going to the round of 32 is something we weren't really thinking was too big of a possibility. Having them both go wouldn't be, but it's you're ultimately you're going to get down to the last 16 and you're going to have battles between top teams, but like I've always said, this being a World Cup in North America or in the Western Hemisphere, some weird stuff's going to happen in those knockout stages. So interested to see where does the quarterfinals look like? What does the semifinals look like? Which big team doesn't deliver? So.
Yeah, I agree. So, Rafa, anything else on this?
I think it's just a big surprise is South Africa being on this list. Especially that first showing, they just didn't look, like I said, the comments we made about them, they just didn't look like a team that was going to end up, we probably thought they would be the first ones out, and here they are. So, and as far as the other ones, like I said, kind of the usual suspects, like I said, Germany, Argentina, we kind of knew that. France, I think Norway, Colombia. So I think you're starting to see your teams, your ones that you're in every World Cup year in year out come in. So, but we'll see what other surprises we'll have in store for after today.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we move on. So our third place standings, or as I like to call it, the relegation battle here. So going into today, this is what it looks like with Bosnia and Herzegovina officially having clinched one of these 8 slots. So these will continue to unfold a little bit more today, a little bit more tomorrow. South Korea is still not 100% in the clear yet, right, out of Group A. But thoughts on, we've now seen Belgium fall below that line, and then Ecuador and Senegal going a little further. And then you got Congo still sitting there, right? Thoughts on these guys?
I don't think 2 points is going to get you in. I think you got to get 3 at least. That last goal that Scotland gave up against Brazil may end up being a dagger there for them, because that would have had them tied for the 5th place spot, and instead they're down in 7th. So. Yeah, and you have, poor Scotland, I think we want them to move on, but most of these teams you would think are going to at least get to 3 points. Maybe, can Ecuador get to 4? Can Cape Verde get a result against Saudi Arabia? But yeah, I think, South Korea looks like they're going to be safe even after their kind of abysmal performance last night. Croatia looks like they're going to be safe, I think, as long as they don't go out and lose by a ton. So, I do think that these standings, for these third place teams or teams that are hoping to get into third place, you may see some more defensive setups where they are just trying, if they feel like they don't really have enough to go win, I'm not going to get beat by 3. I'm not going to get beat by 4, right? Because that's going to really hurt their chances. So,
yeah, the pragmatic play, and I'm kind of curious, how do we see that in terms of game plans by some of these teams some of these countries that might need it, right? Is it from the start, we're just going to hunker down, start to finish, or do we kind of pick our moments in terms of first quarter, second quarter, post the hydration break, or in the same thing in the second half? Or am I going to look at it to hunker down second half, come out aggressive first half, hunker down second half? Or hunker down only until we have to chase it kind of thing, right? That's what I'm curious too, right? The tactics of it will be very interesting. So, Rafa, thoughts on this?
I think some of the teams I think that have the best chance to kind of get back into the top eight is Belgium and Congo. I think they have winnable games, so I could see Belgium getting up to 5. Congo, like I said, they definitely need to get that, you know, a win over who I think should take care of business against Uzbekistan. So the ones that are probably really in danger is, like I said, Cape Verde. They got to have to beat a good, I mean, a real competitive team in Saudi Arabia. Scotland's gonna brace themselves, especially that the goal differential. The big thing is Paraguay. You know, if they can get at least a tie, I think that's enough for them. But if they get a loss, I think that could knock them off, especially the goal differential. Algeria's got I think they got a tough one. They have Austria. They had to get rid of. So I think, like I said, Algeria, Paraguay, Scotland, and Cape Verde, I think they're in danger of moving out. I think Belgium and Congo do have a better shot going in. I think Ecuador's got a tall task, and then Senegal. It's going to take a a lot of different scenarios for them to maybe
Right.
they have to get like a 6-0 win just
Yeah.
for them to maybe even get even the 8th spot. So
They're going to be, if Senegal gets in or on the out, they're going to be like the Joe Lenardi bracketology special, right? Like last team in or first team out kind of scenario if they win, right? But yeah, I mean, keep in mind these can shift in terms of some of these teams can go from third place to now, depending on their results, move into second place in their respective groups. But the only ones whose fate are kind of sealed and they have to play the waiting game are these teams that have already played their 3 matches, such as South Korea, Scotland, and of course we had already mentioned Bosnia, but they've already sealed their advancement, so we're good. Brian, final thoughts on this?
I mean, I think when you look at it in the case of South Korea, you have 7 teams that can still jump them in the standings. Realistically, I mean, Ecuador, Congo, Belgium can all of them can get a win and jump them, and then Senegal, depending on the goal difference, they're playing an Iraq team that has shipped in a lot of goals, so yeah, or I believe they're playing. Who is Senegal playing? Yeah, I believe they have Iraq. So I think they can score a lot of goals. Hopefully that, I want to see Senegal do well. I like Senegal. I like their players. I know they got a lot of turmoil in their camp, but this is the kind of time when you bond together and say, okay, let's just get it done and get going. So I'm gonna be honest. I still don't think South Korea is safe in this thing yet. I know we want to try to say they are. I don't think they are. I think Scotland will probably go home. I think Steve Clark said it yesterday that he expects to go home, especially giving up the goals that they gave up yesterday. Congo has a game they can win. Cape Verde has a game they can win. Belgium has a game they can win. It's just going to come down to, can these teams perform? Are they going to play as if they have nothing to lose? Are they going to play with that intensity that, hey, we have to go out and win, or we have to go out and get a result, instead of, hey, we just want to try to sneak in and not give up too many goals and hopefully get in based on our goal difference. But I mean, take a look at all 8 of those teams that are there, or all 12 of those teams. None of them have a plus goal difference. And I find that amazing that,
Well, and that speaks to what Elias was talking about earlier, right? I think you have a chance on 3 points with a healthy goal differential, and to keep that, you're going to have to play kind of some pragmatic soccer in match day 3, right?
or maybe
Do
like
you
in
not
Senegal.
think that Senegal can put 3 on Iraq and get
I
to
think
3 points?
absolutely,
Get to 3
absolutely.
points at 0 goal differential. I think that gets you in.
Yeah, I think
You're
that
at
will
3
too.
and 0, you're in.
Yeah. I mean, I think with Mane and Nicholas Jackson up top, I mean, we can say whatever we want about Nicholas Jackson and not being able to find the back of the net with a map and a flashlight. But, I think with Mane on the field, they have the opportunity. They have the capabilities. I mean, they put 2 on the U.S. in short order. They did score. They scored against France. They scored against Norway. They have scored goals. The problem's been with them defensively. I don't think Iraq is the kind of team that's going to give them the kind of problems that France and Norway did. So I think Senegal can get themselves into the knockout stages. I think once they get into the knockout stages, they might be that team that you don't want to play.
Yeah, that AFCON effect. We shall see. I mean, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes with that group. So I think all their issues are off the field, and they're translating to on the field, on the pitch. Unfortunately, so. Oh, excuse me. So, but yeah, as of now, these teams that are listed on here, the only one we know for sure that will be moving on to the knockout rounds is Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is, as of last night, 99% certainty that they will face the U.S. men's national team on July 1st. So, and in true fashion, of course, leave it to Bosnia's best player to be born in Appleton, Wisconsin, Mr. Milwaukee Messi. So that should be interesting, seeing that there. See how that plays out as well. But that could be one tough matchup for the U.S. men's national team.
And unlike Jesse Marsh, we don't have a problem playing two countries at once.
I forgot about that comment. So, but yeah. So, all right. Last thing before we move on to the U.S. match. So, just kind of want to reiterate. I know we looked at this yesterday, so kind of want to just throw this out here really quick. This is updated as of last night's results. Still very much shifting, right? Something's updated, something's up in the air still, but just kind of where everyone is in terms of blue highlighted as your current third place teams, your red eliminated as of today. This will change again after tonight's results. But anything different after just how things are kind of shaping up and how you look at this in terms of what's already the groups that played yesterday, who's playing today, or looking forward to Friday and Saturday?
I'm looking forward to Group K. I mean, I think Colombia and Portugal is going to be a great matchup. But I think I'm really looking forward to that Congo-Uzbekistan game because I think a lot of fans have kind of rallied around the Congo and their players and the way they've played in this tournament and how hard they've played. Can they keep it up and can they get a good win over Uzbekistan and see themselves into the round of 32? I think that's going to be a fun game to watch. And then obviously, like some of these games we talked about yesterday, interested to see Croatia and Ghana, Norway and France, and then Uruguay and Spain. So there's a lot of good soccer left to be played in this World Cup in the group standings.
So Elias, Rafa, and looking at yesterday's results and then the third place standings, how they've been impacted, has anything from when we looked at this yesterday to now today, has anything shifted in terms of what's kind of piquing your interest either today or the next couple of days?
I kind of just want to see how these brackets play out. I mean, I think that, if Portugal gets second place, then you're looking at a Spain-Portugal matchup in the round of 16. You have Mexico, England possibly in the Azteca, and then on the other side, it kind of leaves Argentina I think, an Argentina-Brazil semifinal or quarterfinal maybe for kind of the, on the right-hand side of the bracket. So, I think
it would be a quarter. I think it would be a quarterfinal.
So, and I think Colombia would be on that side as well. So it's kind of shaping up to where, is it a story, book ending for Messi again, where kind of all the pieces line up and they kind of have this, not necessarily cupcake route, but an easier path just because maybe some of the big teams didn't perform the way that they were planning to. I think really the big thing is just how, and just with all the different combination, I think that's what's so interesting about this World Cup is like, you don't, like the U.S. is at a huge advantage with basically knowing who they're going to play because they can already. I guarantee their analysts are already working on Bosnia and Herzegovina. They're already deep in the preparation. But if you don't know until tonight, and Japan and Brazil, right, or Japan Sweden, that changes who Brazil plays, and they play on Monday. That game's on Monday.
Correct.
That. Now obviously they have huge teams and they're probably doing their homework on both teams, but it does change the preparation aspect. It changes the way that the brackets are going to play out. So,
and there is a difference. There is a difference between finishing advantage or disadvantage between second and third teams here that come out of these groups, right? Because you're looking at potentially 124 to maybe 36 hours less recovery time and turnaround time in some of these cases too, right? So just to further to your point.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the big thing. I want to see how Spain plays. I saw Nico Williams. He had an interview yesterday, and I was, my Spanish is okay. I wish I was more fluent, but I was listening to him, and he says he's ready to start. He says he doesn't know if he will, but he says he's ready. So, is this Spain getting to full strength? I think Lamine Yamal, if he plays, I mean, not if he plays, but if he is, I think he was at 60% maybe in that game against Saudi Arabia. If they can get him to 100% going into the knockout stages, I mean, he is top three players in this tournament, I think. Top three, top four. Obviously Messi and Mbappe are up there, Erling Haaland. But I think that, if you have the best system and the best player, then you may win. So kind of interested to see that. Colombia, Portugal, we kind of talked about a little bit last night. Does Colombia play for a tie? Do they go for the jugular and try to beat Portugal? I think that they'll go out to try to win that game. How does Portugal react maybe to a team that is, I mean, I think that's the number 6 versus number 9 team in rankings in the world, right? So you have a top 10 matchup in group play. What is that going to look? That's going to tell us a lot about both of those teams and if either of them are legitimate contenders or not. So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking at there.
Yeah, my concern there with Portugal is just we've been talking about it in our chat, right? Is how does Roberto Martinez handle that, right? Obviously not going to play pragmatic, sitting on 4 points, but he's got to let them go. I think that's the big thing. You saw a little bit more of a glimpse in it from their first match day to the second match day, and how they really kind of poured it on, right? Beyond Ronaldo, I think that's one of the difference I think between Portugal and Argentina is, right, when you look at the reliance on Messi with Argentina, who's playing at a insane level, obviously right now. So more so versus the not need or reliance on Cristiano Ronaldo. Is he still their best finisher? No doubt. But he needs that service, right? He's not going to create the way Messi can, right, and pick his spots. But they're both really kind of playing the same way in terms of just picking their moments, right? But the difference is he's got to let his substitution patterns doesn't really matter. I think if it comes down to starting Ronaldo or not, they can win in spite of Ronaldo. But I think Martinez has got to let them go, let them play free, particularly when you have that midfield. So we'll see. Rafa, any final thoughts on this?
Just like I said, there's some interesting games here. Like I said, I'm very curious how, like that Spain Uruguay game. I think that's an intriguing matchup there. What is Uruguay? They've been kind of struggling with those two games. Are they going to bring their A game for this one? Like I said, they still have a shot, to win the group. That could be a factor there too. Also, the game versus the game France and Norway. Like I said, Haaland versus Mbappe. Like I said, it's to the top Golden Boot. Nominees, I guess you can say. Going at it. Are they going to go toe to toe? Who's going to get the most goals? Then the Portugal Colombia game is going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be in Miami, so it's basically a home game for Colombia. So they're going to go. Portugal is going to go to a little hostile environment there. So, and then community is going to be a factor there too. So how well conditioned both teams are, because lately they've been playing kind of, Mexico City's not as hot compared to maybe here in Miami. Like I said, Portugal's been playing it indoors the last 2 games, so that, like I said, that could come into factor in this as far as conditioning. And then, that Croatia, can Croatia, get back, kind of sneak in, get that second spot, knock off Ghana. It's a lot at stake here these last few games, and it's going to make up. Could be different matchups and so forth. Like you mentioned, something those round of 16 games, we got some heavyweights that can possibly face each other. Just depends on where they end up at.
Right. So yeah, interesting. Lots of great match day as match day three, second day of match day three unfolds. So, all right, we shift gears here and as we start to wrap up here, we're looking at, so tonight's matchup, right, slated for 9 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern, U.S. men's national team and Turkiye, a tricky matchup where Turkiye has nothing to play for other than pride. Still lots of talent. We have not seen their best version, and versus a U.S. team that is going to not that formation, but the lineup will look very differently. We don't know what the ripple effect of the formation will be if need be. But thoughts on this very kind of interesting, tricky matchup for the U.S. men's national team? Brian, we'll start with you.
Well, there's only one day I worry about Turkey, and that's not until November. So, I'm ready to just go ahead and get this thing done and go take 3 points, go take our 9 points, and go on to the house. But no, I think it'd be real interesting to see what the lineup's going to be. I know Poch has already said that he's planning on rotating the players on cards, but at the same time, who's going to play in the midfield? The questions that surround Christian Pulisic: is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench in the second half? What does it look like? Do we go 2 strikers with Haji Wright and Pepe, or do we go 1 striker with the wingers? There's so many things that we could see tonight. Do we get to see?
So what do we see? What do we see? Give us your not formation, but your lineup back to the front. What do we see? What do you think?
I think you're going to see Matt Freese in goal. You might see Matt Turner in goal. I don't know. I personally, I'd stick with Freese. Back 4. I'm thinking DeMarcus Beasley, Oguchi Onyewu, Eddie Pope. Frankie Hayduck on the back 4. Yeah, I mean,
This concludes analysis by Brian Heyman. We'll move on to Elias. Elias, go ahead. I was like, who is he talking about? Horrible dad joke, by the way, with Turkey.
Well,
go ahead, continue.
I was waiting on I was going to get to Michael Bradley in the midfield and then start
the key substitution, right? So we talk about the 4 sitting out for the yellows, right? So who do you insert for those 4?
I think you'll see, based on what I've seen in the tournament so far and the substitution patterns, I think you'll see Austin Trusty in the center back with Tim Ream. And then is Jedi on a card either? Is he?
Yeah,
he is. So I think you may see Joe Scally.
Yeah, it's Balogun, Adams, Jedi, and Richards are our 4 sitting on yellow. Yeah.
So I think you'll see Trusty. I think you'll see Joe Scally. Although you could make an argument.
No McKenzie, huh? You don't think McKenzie?
Based on what I've seen, I think you'll see Trusty over McKenzie. But the good thing is we have 10 defenders we can choose from. So with those 2 out, we have 8 possible options. But I think the midfield, I think you'll see McKinney. I think you'll see Tillman.
Does he drop McKinney further back, or does he drop Tillman a little bit further back and shifts McKinney, I think, and start maybe with a little bit lower line of confrontation, maybe look to press or a little bit more spacing in the pressing?
Personally, I would drop McKinney back a little deeper. I think he sits in. I think he's more inclined to sit back there a little bit better.
You can play him anywhere. You can play him anywhere.
Yeah, and I think Tillman's more of an attacking mid, a true attacking mid in that sense. So I think you'll see them there. I could see them go with that 4-4-2 as well, and then you could see Haji Wright and Pepe up top, but then on your wings you could see McKenzie playing left back and Joe Scally playing on that wing back on the left mid with Dest on the right side. You have all sorts of options there.
Yeah, so. Pulisic, Elias. You look at Pulisic, right? Indications are he'll get some playing time, probably second half sub, maybe 30 minutes or so. How would you use him versus how do you expect him to be used?
I think that you've got to give him some rhythm. You don't want to go. What is it? 18 days. What the first game was on? What, the 14th?
June 12th, I think that was.
Yeah.
But then we played on the 13th, right? The next day. So is that right? Mexico played on the 12th,
It was
and then
11th, 12th, or 12th, 13th. So either 12th or 13th is when that. I think it was the 12th, that first game.
and then now you're
Yeah,
looking
it
at
was
the
the 12th.
knockout game is on the 29th, or on the
July
first.
July
First,
1st.
yeah.
Yeah, July 1st. So it's a full blown 3 weeks. Yeah.
I mean, so I think you got to give him some sort of rhythm. I don't know that we see Tim Ream. I mean, the guy's 38 or however old he is. I mean, he's an old man, right? So if you can give him a break, then maybe you give him a break. I think we all don't necessarily want to see Miles Robinson, but he started a couple of those warm-up games, so obviously Poach likes him for some reason. Berhalter seems to be one of his first subs off the bench. Again, maybe not somebody who's super popular with all the casuals and all of us and whatever, but he seems to be somebody that has trust from the manager. I think that we could.
Rafa, I know you got to step out, buddy. So we'll see you. Thanks for your work today. Appreciate you.
See you, Rafa.
Later, Rafa.
Sorry, go ahead, Elias.
And then, I think that, we'll see some sort of. The formation necessarily doesn't really interest me so much more as like what it looks like when they're playing. Are they going to continue with wing backs high and wide? Are they gonna play with two strikers? How are they going to create chances? So all of those things, and I'd honestly like. Now looking back on it, like if you go back and look at kind of the results, I don't know where a lot of people, and myself included, like I feel like we almost like overrated Turkiye. I mean, I was today going back and looking at their results. I mean, they beat the U.S. and they tied Spain, and those are their two big results in the last like 4 years. I mean, they're beating Georgia and North Macedonia and Hungary and Kosovo in the playoffs to get in. So,
So with Turkey, I think it kind of came down to their recent form, right? They had been unbeaten, I think 9 matches coming into the World Cup. You cited those matches versus the U.S. and Spain, and then just their form. Yeah, they were in the playoff, but they're coming out of the playoff. They were the highest rated seed coming out of the playoff, and then of course, just I think when you look at their individual talent, who they're playing, who they have their some of their players are playing club ball for. I think all of that factored in, and then you look at their ranking, right? Because this was the most close knit, top to bottom Group D was in terms of ranking. So, and a lot of it just kind of became the sexy pick, right? To pick them over the U.S. to win Group D. So yeah, I was kind of asking myself the same thing, but then I was like, all right, I guess a lot of people are kind of getting on board with this. So it was interesting, but to see them not even qualify, man, I think that speaks more. Some to them, but more to the quality of Group D.
Yeah, and they're known for blowing up. They lost 6-0 to Turkey. Not to Turkey, to Spain. They lost 3-1 to Montenegro at one point. They've lost 6-0 to. These are all within the last two years. They lost 6-1 to Austria, 3-0 to Portugal. So they're kind of like all up and down. I think their ceiling is high because I do think they have some good players, but I don't necessarily rate them, especially now after kind of watching them as high as maybe I think they were maybe overrated coming into the tournament. But the big thing I want to see from the U.S. is can they continue with, no matter what the players are on there, is the playing style. I don't really, and I'm interested to see how he sets them up and things like that. But I think what's been really cool about this USA team is that it fits into our culture here in the U.S. of sports. We want high tempo, fast, vertical, athletic sports, right? And this U.S. team is giving you that. I walked into our football office and the first thing our football coach was, man, those guys are so athletic. Like they're so fun to watch. So I think that's what I kind of want to see is can we continue that high tempo, and then also how do these other players, and can we, the 2 games that we saw were different than the games in the warm up a little bit because of the players that we had. I want to see there not be as big of a drop off. with these rotations, because that's going to be key in the
Right,
knockout.
right.
You're going to have to make rotations at some point in a game to change a game, and you have to be able to continue to get results with your 14th, 15th, 16th players.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's the question, right? If you're approaching the coaching staff, is how do we keep the momentum? How do we keep, because if anything else, the thing we've never seen before that the U.S. has clearly shown in this World Cup after 2 matches is not the group, but just the identity, right? Because we never had a team that had a clear-cut identity like how they've played so far. So the attack, the press, the playing in behind space. But then when you look at it from the perspective of after 2 matches in this group play, what has Turkiye struggled with, right? In terms of Australia and Paraguay, right? Is counters, transition and counters, right? So which is also one thing that I think what makes this U.S. team dangerous is they can beat you more than one way. Their identity is like, hey, if we need to counter or we need to play more direct, right? We can do that too, right? And pick our spots. The question is how does he do that given all the mass substitutions? And you want to have them build up, right? You want to get them some experience, but how does he balance all of that with zero drop off, right?
But I think the other part is, I mean, I was listening to Eric Winaldo when I was driving home from Dallas, and he made a very interesting point. He said in '94, the U.S. really had just 6 dudes that could do the job, and he says in '98 they had 6 dudes. By the time you got to 2014, you had maybe 8 dudes that could do the job. This team here, he says he thinks there's still a long way to go, but he says out of this group here, there's maybe 12 guys, 12 dudes that can go out and play at the highest level. I think we're still not there with our development. So that's going to be the key part is these guys that are coming in tonight, these guys that are going to rotate in, guys like Mark McKenzie, guys like Austin Trusty, guys like Joe Scally or, Sebastian Berhalter. Can they become the dudes that we need to go out there and do the job? Can Haji Wright go out there and be that dude to go out there and do the job that we need them to do? Can we get this roster to 16, 17, maybe 18 guys that can help us win games? So this is a big test for those young players, and I'm hoping to see what the lineup looks like later tonight, and just kind of see what these guys do when they step into this game. But at the same time, what is Turkey going to do? Are they gonna run their starters back out there? Are they going to say, look, this is it. Let's go ahead and rotate our squad as well. Our World Cup's over. We want to make sure we give these other players their opportunity to play on a world stage. Because the game doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter standings wise, but it matters in a sense that we want to see a good positive result. We want to see our players play at a high level. We want to see the continued development of this system that Poch is putting out there. I want there to be hunger from those guys that are on the field. I want to see Sebastian Berhalter playing with some hunger and some desire. I want to see Austin Trusty playing with that hunger and desire. I want to see, if it's Miles Robinson or Haji Wright, whoever, I want to see those guys come out and play with that hunger. I want those guys to come out and play for that badge and be those dogs that like we talked about. We've talked about in the past, Hector, those guys that just don't have that dog in them. I want to see those guys. That's been the thing I've loved the most about this World Cup. We have seen our guys show up and they've had that dog in them. They've had that junkyard dog attitude that they're going to come out, they're going to be feisty, they're going to fight for the badge, they're going to fight for this team, and they've kind of just changed that image that we had in 2018 and in 2022, that these guys just are soft. These guys, this team here has proven that they're not soft, and I want to see the 11 guys that come out tonight continue to show that they're not soft, and they're gonna put their foot down, and they're gonna pedal to the metal, and they're gonna run right over Turkey tonight.
Yeah, and I think the collective. By the way, you wash your mouth out, sir, for mentioning Miles Robinson. Okay, so. Hey. So just got to mention there's certain things we don't do. We don't mention him, and we don't badmouth Barca players on this podcast. Okay, so what I would say, yeah, I agree with you, fully agree with you. Now, how does that translate in terms of zero drop off? Sometimes not in athleticism, not in technical skill, but collective play, collective identity, and and what is Poch telling them? And then to your point, from Turkey's perspective, there I feel like 2 things, right? one, they're playing for pure pride at this point. What that means in terms for them, who knows? But I think when you look at whoever they put out there, as well as the U.S. men's national team, whoever's out there, all these teams, what kind of gets lost a lot is, they're kind of playing. They're playing for potential future contracts, right? So they got to show well and make the most of their minutes, because somebody's playing out of a match like this where there's quote unquote nothing to play for. They could, a potential future offer from a club overseas in Europe could come out of this, right? So we don't know, right? We don't know from that perspective. But yeah, I agree. The mentality piece, how does Poach handle this in terms of just got to keep the momentum going? And then the other piece too is, like, we still don't know, right? Is, you mentioned earlier, right, Brian, about having a goalkeeper not so much not losing you a game, but is going to have to win you a game at some point. Freese is going to have to do that, right? He's proven to be he's the clear number one in goal. So what does that look like, right? And why I mention that is because this is clearly a Turkiye squad that doesn't struggle to get shots off, right? 62 shots. 62 shots in 2 matches, 0 goals. So some of that tells you that they're due, right? So we're putting out a back line out there that's going to definitely be different, along with how does that throw off the chemistry with Freese potentially? We've got to look into that as well. So thoughts on that, Elias?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to talk about that a little bit. It's going to be a different game than the other 2 that they've played, in the fact that Turkey is going to want the ball. They're going to feel like they're at their best when they have the ball. Whereas, Australia and Paraguay kind of control the game without the ball. So, how are they going to manage those different moments of the game? I'd like to see, how is our low block defending? We're going to be in a low block more tonight than we have been the rest of the tournament, just because of the opponent. And you're going to, when you get to the round of 16, and you are potentially playing, a big time team, or the quarterfinal. I think the quarterfinal, you're looking at a Spain or Portugal. You're going to be in a low block for a good part of that game, just because of the quality of the opponent. So, what does that look like? How do we control tempo, right? I think we've all kind of fallen in love with how fast and direct this team is. But if the game becomes too open, can you sustain that for 90 minutes without conceding chances at the other end, right? It's not even necessarily that are we fit enough to do it or whatever, but can you play in an open game for 90 minutes against a good opponent and not concede chances? And the answer is no, right? No team can play end to end for 90 minutes and not concede a chance. So just watching how that plays out, I think Turkiye, their coach, I mean, he probably is feeling like he may get, get canned after this tournament. So I don't think they rotate. I mean, imagine from a Turkiye, position, you go out, you're already eliminated, you go out and you throw in the towel on the last game of the tournament, and you get beat 3-0 because you rotated. I mean, that country, that is a slap in the face to that entire country over there. And they are crazy about their soccer out there. I mean, I don't know if y'all saw, like, their first game when they played Australia, they were watching, there was like thousands of people watching the game out by the ocean, right? So, I think that you're going to see a team that's playing for a lot of pride. They are probably embarrassed. I think they would have known that they were expected to challenge for winning the group, and now they were the first team eliminated, and they're going to have a point to prove. And then also, right, like those individual players, if you go 0 for 3, a lot of them are probably not going to get called back up. So,
right.
they're not going to want to go and be one of those that doesn't. They want to be the lone bright spot in the tournament, right? So, I think that it's going to be an interesting game. I think that we're going to be in a low block a little bit more. Not saying that we're going to be defending the whole time, but I think Turkey's going to have their moments where they're applying some pressure, and we're going to have to defend well. And I'm interested to see how we handle that, because I think that's going to be a good learning experience going through. As far as the goalkeepers, I think, you keep I think we saw Mexico do it last night, where everyone kind of anticipated them starting Memo Ochoa, but Aguirre decided continuity is important. I think that, if you are, especially if you're going to kind of reorganize the back line, I don't necessarily know that you want to throw a new goalkeeper in there, even though, Matt Turner is experienced. I don't know that you necessarily want to throw, another change in there that you don't have to. So, yeah, I mean, I expect to see Freese back there. And then, like Brian said, like, these young pups, are they dudes? Like tonight, we're gonna see. Are you a dude? Are you for real? Are you part of this next generation? Like, because after this World Cup, what's the next step? How do we go even further? And so these guys, this is their audition tonight. Are you part of what's going to take this country and this federation to even bigger heights? So, we say that a lot. Like I had a little freshman, and we're playing Walnut Grove, and I'm like, be a dog, like just go out there. I don't care. You're tired. You can cramp at the end of the game. Like you have, go out there, be a dog, and get their freaking job done. So.
But we've made point. Hector keeps bringing up these 62 shots. Only 13 have been on target. So yeah, they're going to get their chances. And I think when we watched the game against Paraguay, I don't think that. I mean, there was maybe one or two great goal scoring chances in that game for Turkiye. Turkiye gets frustrated very easily, and they're going to start taking shots from all over the pitch, and that's where they're going to ramp up their numbers. But are they gonna give our back line the kind of problems that we need to see to test our back four? I mean, other than that one goal that we gave up against Paraguay, and then some opportunities against Australia, our back line has not really. I think our back line has really met the test so far at this World Cup.
Yeah. Well, that's the irony of this match, right? This is clearly the best attack we will have seen in group play, and yet that back line is going to look very different. It won't be your true starting 11, right? Your true starting back line. So that's kind of the irony, I think, here. So, but we do have some players with some experience, but I think it's more attack oriented, right? So we have the luxury of a Haji right up top. You have the luxury. I think this is a game where you can definitely bring in a Tim Weah, who's both of those guys have scored, right? They've scored in a World Cup, right? So there's something to be said there. The athleticism as well. This game, I think, this game kind of screams for we talked about Reina, for Pepe as well. How you get them in, how you figure that out. I think it comes down to the question is just the back line playing with each other, and then Serginho Dest, I think, just looms large in a match like this.
And I think the big question the other big questions is what do we do with Pulisic tonight? And
I think he gets 20 to 30 minutes. I think
agree.
I think so too. But I mean, I could also see them just say, no, we're not going to risk it tonight. And, because again, what kind of.
I saw an interview with him yesterday, and he said he claims he's 100%. He claims he's ready to go. He's like, I could.
Yeah.
How many of our players do that? Hey, I'm 100%, and the trainers behind them shaking their heads. Not
quite. Yeah, he needs surgery like right now.
Players play, man. Players play. Players want to play for sure. But I think knowing Poch's mentality, I see Pulisic playing tonight, right? So, and I agree. I think with Ramos, I think he's a post. I think he's a fourth quarter entry, right? Post second hydration break. I think that's when we see him. If we see him, I would not agree with starting him. That I would not see. And then you're trying to get whether it be 45 plus or 60 minutes out of him. But I think a post-match water break, 25 to 30 minutes, I think makes sense. So, all right, official scoreline as we start to wrap up here. So, Brian, Country Roads Heyman, we'll send it to you first. Official score, what do you think?
Well, my original thought was 7-0 USA, but
1-0. We're talking American football terms. 1-0.
I think we're able to punch one in early and get a touchdown. But no, I'm going to say my original thought was in our pot or in the predictions. I think I had this as a 1-1, but I can see this. I can see the U.S. winning this one 2-1 tonight.
2-1.
2-1.
Turkey finally gets on the board.
Sure, give them some hope as they head home.
Yeah.
I agree. 2-1.
I think we had. Let me see what the official. Going back to our original brackets, what they were. I'm looking that up right now. I think we had Brian. You had. If I can find it here. So you had 1-1 actually.
Yeah, I originally had a 1-1.
Did you? I did not. I did not catch that. Not from you. I would have. I would
Well,
not.
I kind of figured at this point we had won the first two games and we had already had.
Mhm.
I kind of figured this game against Turkey was going to be for the top of the group, and I think the mentality was going to be different. I thought Turkey was going to win both their games, and then this was going to be that game to who's going to win the group, and I thought the U.S. would find a way to get a draw and win the group that way.
So you had all three of us. This was funny. All three of us had this match going in on our brackets 1-1. All had a draw. So,
Yeah.
Elias, thoughts? Any changes to that, or you feel comfortable with that? What do you think?
I think 2-1. I think 2-1. I do think that Turkey's going to get one. I think at some point this game the U.S. will either be trailing or it will be tied 1-1 at some point, which I think will be good for the U.S. to have to deal with that kind of game state and go try to find a winner, in the second half. So, but no, I think that I just think that the crowd and playing in front. I mean, I can't see even the substitutes coming in and not playing with their hair on fire. I mean, I don't see a way that we come out with all the buzz that's going on and we lay an egg. I just can't see that happening, no matter who's out there. Like Heyman said, we could throw DeMarcus Beasley out there and Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan and in front of those crowds, and they would roll it back one time because I think that's what this World Cup means
Yeah.
to this team playing in our country. So, but I think it's really important to have continue to build the excitement. When you
Correct.
get to a knockout game, you want it to be a home game, right? You want it to be a true home game. You don't want these other teams coming in with their fans and disrupting your environment. And the way that you do that is you continue to put together positive results and entertaining soccer to continue to get the country invested in the team's success. So,
Yeah.
I think that this game is really important in continuing that.
So hold on here. So Fabrizio Romano is telling me that the U.S. will come out to Metallica's Enter Sandman. So, and I see I'm going to go 2-0, get revenge back for when they beat us 2-0 a few months back.
It was 2-1.
2-0. Or was it 2-1? I thought
That was 2-1 because
Oh,
Jack
no.
Jack McGlynn scored like in the first 5 minutes of that game.
Who am I thinking? No, it was South Korea that it was 2-0.
Yeah, South Korea was
never
2-0
mind.
in New York.
Yeah. So we'll go. No, I'm going to keep it 2-0. They get the clean sheet somehow. But yeah, it just kind of comes down to, can we figure out, because this is kind of going back to the traditional way of how we've played, where I think Turkey is most susceptible, is the counter, right? The direct, the long ball, the press. So how do we play this hybrid of press in moments, getting behind, but when need be in transition, just send it and outplay them, outrun them. So yeah, and then, but Elias brings in the variable, the X factor is the environment, the atmosphere, the crowd, and more than anything is you've got to keep momentum going. So I'll go 2-0 US. So, all right, final thoughts, guys, as we wrap up. I know one of the things, again, thank you for listening to us today. This is episode 10 of the Red, White, and Crew podcast. Again, follow us. You can follow us on Twitter X at Red White Crew Pod, as well as on Instagram at Red White Crew Pod. You can also follow all the audio podcast, right? The traditional podcast platform, whatever you have, you can find us there under the 50/50 podcast, since the Red White Crew Pod is part of the 50/50 podcast network. So go on there, go on YouTube under the 50/50 podcast as well. YouTube channel coming soon, sometime before the World Cup is over, but go on there, give us a subscription, give us a like. You give a thumbs up on this video, make sure you give a like. All right, that helps with the algorithm and getting us more views and putting out more content. So, gentlemen, this has been great. Really appreciate you guys. Any additional final thoughts before I talk about our upcoming shows?
Yeah, I mean, Heyman kind of touched on this. We pardon one turkey a year. It's not going to be tonight. So I got America by 250.
250. Look at that.
For
Right.
250 years of freedom, baby.
We're going to unleash that tonight. One thing I'm going to do, I got a friend of mine who's down in Venezuela, and they've been hit by that real bad earthquake. I don't know if y'all seen all that. All the damage has been down there. We found out today he's okay right now, so good for that. It's just the people that are down there suffering, man. We wish them the best. Hope they're okay. I mean, the scenes that I've seen have been absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could handle it. I lived through a small one in LA back in the day, and I don't want to ever do that again. So, thoughts with them. But on a better note, there's nothing better than carving turkey on an evening in July, on an evening in June. God, doesn't sound right. So, turkey sandwiches tomorrow for everybody.
There you
Plenty
go.
of leftovers for everybody, and
Yeah.
I will see all you guys tomorrow with my victory shorts on.
Yeah, tryptophan will fully kick in. Yeah, I was going to say, so first of all, a serious note, definitely thoughts and prayers with the people there in Venezuela. But I was, what I was thinking, Brian, as you said that, Elias takes us out on a high note. And I was thinking of that Ricky Bobby scene where like all the good and positive stuff that he just said, you ruined it, so you kind
Yeah,
of
well,
killed the buzz there, unfortunately. It is a serious note, but I was like, oh my God. But yeah, no, I'm glad you finished it out strong. So I appreciate that.
then I also want to let the good people at the Cook Islands Football Association know I am working on my resume. I will have that to you by tomorrow. Looking forward to helping get the Cook Islands into the 2030 World Cup, which, from what I've heard from my good friend Gianni, Mr. Infantino, we're going to have 128 teams at this World Cup. That's going to cover like 7 countries and 8 time zones. It's going to be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to taking the Cook Islands to the World Cup to take on Brazil in the first game.
Yeah. He is the head coach of Mercenary FC. He is Coach Brian Heyman, who's been fired by 49 teams in this World Cup, even though there's only 48. Go figure. So,
Been fired twice by one of them.
oh my God. So good stuff. Good stuff. So, hey, we'll be coming to you our next show either late tonight. We'll talk with the boys late tonight, or if not tomorrow, our recap show from today's USA Turkey match. We'll see. So be on the lookout for that. But again, just like, rate, subscribe. You know where to find us as we continue to grow this podcast as eventually beyond the World Cup. Obviously, the focus right now is the World Cup, but this channel, this podcast is not going anywhere. It's a great group of people that know what they're talking about. So go on there, tell somebody about this. Make sure they like, rate, subscribe, follow us on social media, and help grow the channel as well on YouTube and get some views in, because it is good content, and we appreciate those of you that have already been with us since the start of this. Really appreciate you guys. So that is going to do it. So for Elias Ramos and Coach Country Roads Heyman, I am your host, Coach Hector Cano. And until the next time, you know what to do. Keep downloading and keep